This point about opposition to war will probably come as a surprise to many people. Opposition to war is not what most people associate with conservatism. So let me elaborate on this, both historically and in theory. Nisbet argues that historically, the most conservative sections of the country have also been the most opposed to war. Right? He says something like, Presidents Wilson and Roosevelt had to drag, browbeat, bully, intimidate, and even practically terrorize those sections of the countries into supporting World War I and World War II. Okay. Along these lines, I saw someone say recently that our grandparents would have been going out to fight ISIS. And my thought on that was, well, no. Our grandparents were very resistant to going into World War II. It took an attack on American soil to make that happen. Right? Similarly for World War I, right? It took a long time for the presidents to bring us into World War I. Right? And Spanish-American War involved a certain amount of faking of evidence. Okay? So what's sometimes called the old right is traditionally very suspicious of foreign entanglements, particularly involvement in wars abroad. Now that has changed somewhat. Okay? Particularly, the Cold War served as a big exception. Okay? So conservatives, because of conservative anti-communism and the idea of the very plausible idea that communism was a definite threat to American interests, that led a lot of conservatives to be more supportive of involvement abroad, right? Having bases in other countries and things like that. But it's interesting to note how some of that pulled back after the Cold War. For example, Russell Kirk and several people from a movement known as Southern conservatism came out very strongly against our intervention in Iraq to defend Kuwait. And that surprised a lot of people, but in a way it was a return to old principles. They were basically saying, okay, there was this huge, important threat from communism, but that's not there now. Right? And we shouldn't be going out to wars just in the national interest. And we shouldn't be trying to remake all of the globe. Okay. Now, libertarians at the same time have tended to be very opposed to war, partly because they argue war tends to increase the power of the state. Right? Think how much regulatory power the government got during World War II, right? Taking over whole industries, etc. Okay. So opposition to war, right, or opposition to almost a sort of culture of acceptance of war has been traditionally a point of agreement between conservatives and libertarians.